You are live. Hey, what's up, folks? This is Joel from GG Cloud Chicago. So if you're on the live stream, we're just getting set up here. Folks are still coming in through and getting their badges. We'll probably touch base here in about 20, 30 minutes, but we'll get started. People are getting situated. So grab a snack, grab a drink, and see you in a few.
Hey folks on the live stream, we are still just getting situated here, so we'll hopefully start here maybe in 10 more minutes. We're just getting some people through the front door right now, so we'll probably start formally at 6 o'clock. So just again, hang tight, and we will be back. And for now, stare at my head. Text, hi. All right. Think? What do you think? You don't care about my passion, Danny. The live stream, the community. All right, folks, we're getting started. We're in a very unique room with a very high projector and a very low presentation panel. So we'll try to do our best and monitor the panel. So let's find Morton. Actually, Dan, do you have your laptop? For the slides.
Is this a Google Meet that
Huh?
you're streaming on?
It's a YouTube. Yeah.
Can you log in through the GV's meeting?
I don't think I think we can, but then I need to tie the stream in because I'm using like OBS. So it's like, yeah, actually that's a good call. 1 second, be right back. Live stream check. Test, test, test. Cool. We got our community. All right. Let's look around. Good, good, good. We got people. Hey, everybody. Thank you. The slides are not up there. Present. How did you get the slides up here, Shane? It was like the present. We're doing great. Here we go. This is all part of the slides.
How you doing? Welcome to GDG.
Yeah. Is that true? Cool. Think so? I feel it. I feel it.
All right.
All right. Technology, it works. All right. Now let's do this for real. Hey everybody, how's it going? I am Joel from GDG Cloud Chicago.
Dan from GDG Chicago.
So if you're in this room, this very packed room, you're hopefully here for a talk on generative AI within marketing with our speaker, Hussein, who will be here shortly.
And our Cloud Next panel as well.
So some logistics aside, the Wi-Fi, we believe, is Google Guest. If you're looking for a Wi-Fi, there you go. Thank you. Use that for your Wi-Fi needs throughout the evening. As I mentioned, we're very grateful to have Hussein today to speak about generative AI within marketing, or GCP. I know We have a very diverse crowd here. Some folks working in the marketing space, some folks working in GCP, some folks working in data and generative AI. So what better way than combine all three diverse topics into a great talk? So we're looking forward to that.
And I'm just going to say, some people working in the dev ecosystem team.
Wait, wait. In addition to that, when you folks arrived, we have a Cloud Next extended panel, very similar to what we did back in July. With Google I/O. Cloud Next, a major conference for Google every year where they basically talk about cloud announcements. It was a conference within a conference. I don't know if any of you, did anyone here formally go to the event? Like, okay, cool. It's like a conference within a conference, and it was a lot of people, so I had to like rest my socials after that one. But we're going to be grateful to have Hussein, Rachel, Levy, Subu, and myself. Subu was a person outside who was getting all the name badges printed out, so shout out to him. Thank you, and then also the supporting staff here today. Follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We do our general announcements there, and we do our posts on things at Chicago GDG. There's our meetup links as well. There are two communities. There's a GDG Cloud Chicago, which is focused on the cloud, Google Cloud, and GDG Chicago. But we work really closely together to make awesome events. Why keep this community separate? We work together. That being said, just to kind of get some brass tacks out of the way, code of conduct, at the end of the day, be excellent to one another. Look, we're all here to learn. We're at different levels of skill set. Some of us are super wizards. Some of us are learning technology for the first time. Just be nice to one another. That's all we ask.
If you have any issues, let us know. If you have issues with us, let that guy back there, Naveen, know. He'll take care of me.
In short, we don't really tolerate harassment here. We're just an open community helping each other move forward in this thing we call life. And always, as you're having a conversation, aim to be a contributor to a conversation. Don't just try and derail a conversation or say no, that's wrong, right? Think about it. Everyone's different perspective. Everyone's learns a little bit differently. This is a little awkward. We actually want to welcome a new Chicago organizer. Some of you may be a GDSCs, former GDSCs. Amanda Rossi, she used to run GDSC for Northeastern.
Yeah.
And has been really helpful in the last week with an announcement we're going to make after the slide, really crushing it with the WTM community. So we figured, why not make her an organizer? So
she said she'd be watching live, so.
Are you watching live, Amanda? So hopefully it's working, and hopefully she's watching us live, and hopefully I'm not talking on mute, because that would be very embarrassing. This one's extremely exciting. Martin, you want to come on up too? So, how many of you? Go ahead.
How many were here at the last one?
Last Windy City Dev Fest.
No, not going there yet.
No?
At the
last meetup.
At the last meetup, when we said, let's do a Dev Fest again. Let's have it in November around KubeCon.
Yeah. Okay.
That didn't happen. Things happened really rapidly. So we're having another Dev Fest in October.
Yeah. Actually, in 2 weeks. Has anyone here been to a prior Dev Fest before? No? Okay, there's a few. Okay. So, as many of you know, we've been in awesome locations. One time we were here in Google, one time we were at DePaul University. This time we're fortunate enough to be at Convene in the Fulton Market area. But to kind of put the context on it, this event wasn't possible until one awesome thing happened. Well, a few things actually. A number of things that happened. So, our friends here at GoTo reached out to us as a Chicago community and said, "Hey, do you folks want to run a meetup? We have a venue space." We asked, "How big?" And they asked, "How big do you want it?" So we foolishly said, "Let's make it as big as possible in the less amount of time as possible." So do you want to talk a little bit about GoTo and what you're looking at the event and what we're looking to do together?
Yeah, so basically GoTo has actually been in Chicago for the last 10 years doing events for developers, and some of you might know us. COVID kind of killed a lot of stuff when it comes to events. So we've been trying this year to kind of build it up again. And one of the events we were going to do was here in October. Unfortunately, we couldn't really get that moving. And so in being out there talking to a lot of people, we ran into some of the leaders from the different communities, and they were talking about it would be great doing something across. And we're like, hey, we have a venue. So what can we do? So very quickly I got introduced to Joel and Dan, and I think our first talk was like two and a half weeks ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty crazy. And when they said, oh, we could be 500-600, I was like, there's 3 weeks until the conference.
We're halfway there.
So it's been really speedy, and I think what we're really trying to do is we basically just want to kind of be part of strengthening the tech community in Chicago and do some cool stuff, make some cool events for you guys. And I think one of the things that the dialogue is around right now for next year is, could we do another one or do something similar? And how do we do that? So you're going to see more of this type of events, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, this event obviously was the biggest support we can go to in the venue, but we've reached out to almost every community. We reached out to AWS, we reached out to Flutter, we reached out to Ruby, we reached out to Java, we reached out to Kotlin, we reached out to, I can't count how many groups we've reached out to. If any of you are meetup organizers we've reached out to, we're sorry for the spam, but as you can imagine, we have 3 weeks to make this thing happen.
And if you were part of any meetups, let us know what meetups you're part of. And if I didn't get that one, send a message to. We got a week to continue doing it.
Yeah. So just to kind of put a close on this, the event is going to be completely free. We recognize this is very experimental, bringing a bunch of technology together. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's the best thing, and we'll do it again next year, and we'll make it even bigger and better. But it's completely free. It's going to be on October 24th at the Convene. You actually had to walk past the Fulton Market Sign to get here to see it. It's right there. Registration is open. If you are interested in presenting, or if you're doing a lightning talk, first-time speakers, we're a very welcoming community. CFP is still open until this Friday, or Saturday, sometime this week. So be sure to submit, and we hope to see you all there. With that being said, we're going to turn over to Hussein to speak on generative AI for marketing with GCP.
Going the wrong way. I realize I'm going the wrong way.
I'm out.
Let's give her a round of applause.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. My name's Hussein Shinoy. I'm usually based out of the Boulder office, but I'm from here. I'm from just north of here, Evanston. I grew up there and left 18 years later, and now I'm back. While I was in college, my parents moved to the south side, so I was a Cubs fan. Still a Cubs fan. They can be a Sox fan if they want to. I'm still a Cubs fan. Sorry, that I guess for me. What I do is here at Google, I am on the Google Cloud side. I work for the Global AI Business and Solutions team, and what the Solutions team does is we work across Google Cloud to bring really interesting things about the Google Cloud platform to life in a variety of different industry use cases. And then the ultimate objective is to put it out on GitHub for you to use as a solution accelerator or a jumpstart. So if you're in a particular industry, we have a variety of different solutions that showcase Google Cloud technologies. And the one that I run, I'm a technical solutions manager on the Gen AI team. So, sorry, that's probably a little bit more detail on that. The Global AI Business and Solutions team, what they do is they specialize in advanced AI products. And as you might imagine, in the last year or so, or 10 months, or however long it's been, I don't know the date anymore, advanced AI is all Gen AI. Everyone just talks about generative AI all the time. So as a technical solutions manager for Gen AI, I do Gen AI in various different industries. I manage the roadmap in this particular solution for Gen AI for marketing. And how many people here are in the marketing industry or have marketing friends?
Marketing.
Marketing friends.
So what I think is interesting about this particular area is that there's a lot of collaboration that occurs within a marketing department. And when you're doing marketing, there's all kinds of different ways to do that. And in addition, you tend to work with different types of people as well. So you'll work with your data scientists, you'll work with creative folks, you'll work with people that are doing performance acceleration. They're trying to do automation, and then you also have just different types of customers that you have, whether it's internal for your own company, you're the advertiser yourself, or you're an agency that's doing one bit. And so with generative AI, there's a lot of opportunities in which you can accelerate or optimize some of your behaviors. And this is GDG, Google Developer Group, so I'm happy to go into any depth of any sort of parts of the solution that we have to show you how we built it, where it is, and I also have, it's all on GitHub, so I'll show you where that is, and I can walk you through the architecture too. Another odd note about myself is before I got to Google about 4 years ago, I was, for the 10 years before that, how long has it been? Dan, Joel, one of you know how long it is. How long is GDG?
In Chicago?
Yeah, been around.
Dan actually recruited me, so he would know.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
and definitely since like 2015, 2014 for sure.
Yeah, so for about 8 years before that, I was a GDG organizer in Northern Colorado as well. So Attendees are a group of a big room. That's great. We used to have 10 people. So it's really nice to see all of you here. And I know you're all developers in some way, so please feel free to just ask. I'm happy to talk. So the deck I have is just like 3 slides, and then I'll jump into a demo. There's probably things that you already know about generative AI, that it has a lot of impact with different types of people. People are really interested in using it for different types of things, whether it's creativity or even just performance optimization. And there's a company called the Boston Consulting Group. They did an analysis, and they said that even now, I guess, it's almost November, so it's almost been 12 months, right, since the advent of ChatGPT. But transformers have been around for a longer time. But in this last, say, 12 months or so, there's about 70% of the organizations that they've talked to within the marketing sphere that are already using generative AI in some way, whether it's to summarize emails or generate emails. So one of the things that we wanted to do at the solutions team is build across the sort of personas that we see when we talk to different companies about how they interact. Demo in a second. So what I have for you today is an example company, and we're going to kind of walk through what this example company would do. This particular company is called Symbol Retail. They're based in North America. They sell clothing and accessories, and they want to run 3 different campaigns for different things. They want to open a store in New York. They want to introduce a new shoe line for men, and they want to introduce handbags for women. And they're an always-on retailer, which means they have websites, that sort of thing. This profile is somewhat important because you want to know what you have a company, it has a brand, it has some existing statements, you know what those are. So what's useful for that is to be able to seed a lot of the generative AI things that you're going to do with that profile. What I'm going to show you is when we were talking to, like I said, a bunch of marketing folks, what we saw is this very collaborative nature in that section of the company. You have folks that are analysts, you have folks that are creatives, and you have folks that are managing a campaign and activating and optimizing it. And along the bottom there, it's probably a little too small to read, but those are the components within Google Cloud technologies that enable the tasks that are on these milestones along this journey that we're going to go through. So I'll go into that in a bit. So the solution accelerator that we have, the generative AI for marketing solution, looks like this when you deploy it. And usually the start of what you're doing at any marketing campaign is you're defining the campaign. You have some sort of segmentation that you want to use. Let's reload this for fun. And you have some sort of segmentation, and today is Wednesday, yes?
Yes.
I'm going to name my campaign, try to spell it right. I'm going to do a target group, bold like myself, and men. And how about we start a campaign brief? A campaign brief typically is your North Star for the campaign. It describes your brand statement, what you're trying to go after, what sort of media you're going to engage, and what sort of tone and voice you want to go into. So with this sort of segmentation, usually what happens is you use something like BigQuery and your data, the data of information that you have, to say, let me segment my users in different ways so I can address them in a more personalized way, or at least segments in personalized ways. So what we've done here is we've imported a few different segments. And then we took that profile of the company, Symbol Brands, and created this creative brief. What happens with this creative brief is it gets uploaded to Google Drive so that if the rest of the marketing campaign team wants to go in and do a few edits, you can use Duet AI and Workspace to continue elaborating in a generative AI fashion. But you'll notice here that the campaign brief that has been generated has, of course, the target age groups and the segment that we're looking at. But it also has, the project overview that we're looking to do. What we want to do is drive awareness, and it's defined some goals, as well as the unique selling proposition of what we're doing with Symbol, and then also generates these are the tasks that we're going to do, the deliverables that we're going to achieve out of this campaign. One of the interesting things, if folks that are in marketing know, that defining or even drawing up a campaign brief tends to take quite some time. And even if this is not specifically perfect, like I said, what's really useful about this is that you can have your campaign team review this. As you're going through generating all these assets, you have a lot more ability to create different campaigns, and you can A/B test them at some point too. What we've done here in the analyst profile, Mary, the marketing analyst, there's 4 big tasks that a marketing analyst might want to do. They want to look at marketing insights. They might want to look at different types of audiences in different ways. They want to look at some trends, and maybe they have a lot of data internally already that are like analyst data that they might want to search through, like internal corpus of data that's just lots of stuff that you might get that you might want to draw inspiration from. So marketing insights, let me see. Let's just be up here. Looking over there. Just be up here. Make sure it goes here. What we've done here is we've imported some Looker dashboards. And what's useful about this is you have Looker dashboards that you can go through in a variety of different ways. So if I wanted to say, let me see what the propensity to purchase predictions are, this data, when you download and install this, we have some synthetic data that we've generated. But typically what you'll see is this data will come in either from Google Analytics or Google Ads, and you'll bring that into BigQuery and then generate these dashboards. And so if we're doing this shoe campaign, what I might want to do is look through a cohort to see what's the propensity to purchase within this particular value life that we're looking at. And you'll kind of go through that and get some information. The nice thing about this particular aspect of it is as we go through those dashboards, we'll extract that information, and at the end, when we get to near the end of the campaign manager, they're going to put together a slide deck of all this information we put together, and this will generate a slide for you, including all that information. The next thing you might want to do as a marketing analyst is go through your data set. And I mentioned there's already been some segmentation, but typically what happens is you have your data team has come up with some segments that you might have talked to them about, but there's some refining that you need to do of the segmentation. You want to know how many people have bought, this type of information, this type of shoe, and this type of time, or you can tell me my most interesting, customers by value spent over time, right? And there's just these sort of natural language queries that you happen to have. With Vertex AI's Palm API, you can both take in natural language query and and use BigQuery's Dataplex data schema and construct a text to SQL sort of thing so that you have a more accessible way to query your data set. This example shows the CDP, the Customer Data Platform example that we have in here with a few different tables. It's relatively reductive because your CDP might have broader sets of data. But if you have this sort of data, you can say something like, and I've preceded some of these, I've seeded some of these queries already, so I don't have to type them. But you can do things like what city and state was had the most quantity of customer transactions. And what it'll do is it'll go through and, oh, there. What it did is it queried the tables, got the schema, took the natural language, and said, write me SQL that looks like that, and then you have a SQL statement. And then it executed that SQL statement. And I'll do this again with the Insight Finder with the New York City one here. The order customer emails by someone transaction in the New York City area. This is basically our favorite customer because they spent a whole bunch of money. Right? So you can see that what this is doing is generating a huge large language model prompt and then asking, give me that SQL. And then it generates the SQL for you. And then gives me this table. So what's awesome about this is that your marketing team, who may not have SQL expertise directly, can start examining the data in different ways. Similarly with trend spotting, there are a few other features in here that are kind of interesting, such as looking at there's news summarization as well. So if I summarize on fashion, what it's going to do is look through all the Google headlines and summarize those for me. That's useful as well when you're doing ideation on what sort of things that you might want to bring to bear in your campaign. This campaign was shoes, but I should have done shoes instead of just fashion. But maybe what I want to do is highlight that I want to have some style that harkens back to the Adidas description here. You can see that modern sportswear styles there, so maybe what I want to do is contemporary modern sportswear leather shoe or something like that, right? The Consumer Insights uses the Vertex AI search and conversation to search through internal corpus of data. As I kind of mentioned, if you have a lot of different marketing teams have different types of information they get. They'll have like a lot of PDFs from analysts that say, here's this consumer report that you want to know about in this different segment. And you can say, men's shoe trends. And I know the answer to this already, even though this is not going to do it right. It's clearly pickleball. Like everyone wants a pickleball shoe for some reason. It's not going to say that. I don't have that data, but like, it should say pickleball, right? So you can see this, they're in conjunction with jogger pants. This is a little older data, but you can kind of get the picture that number one, you get a snippet back just like Google search, and you also get a reference. But this is all on an internal data set. So imagine Google search at your fingertips via your Google Cloud, right? So you have your ability to do that. With all this analysis that we've been able to do, we can move over to our the chat of the content creator, and the content creator is going to do something like this. We pulled this data set already, and this was actually maybe this one. Okay. We pulled this data set already, and these are. Is this not being or I'm just not talking close enough to it. Oh no. Not picking up. So this one shows email copy generation. And what's nice about this example is we're doing two things. First, what we're going to do is we're going to use the CDP data tables for our pieces that we're looking at for this email example. And as we generate these emails, it's not only going to know, Robert, but also that they're a young adult and that their primary language is French. So Robert has an email here, and it's also using Imagine, the image generation tool, to create an image for this. And it has, hello Robert, 1120, that sort of thing. But Robert speaks French, so it translates into French. And so you have the same thing here. I think we had Portuguese, David, Portuguese. So if we go to David's, you can see this is in Portuguese. And that's really nice because you have two things. One, when you're trying to do hyper-personalization, or at least getting closer to segment personalization, you want to have translated information. you want to also image generation. So now I have a bunch of emails I can do. There's also a bulk generation. I did 50 here just as an example, but you could generate a whole bunch of them. I'll generate like 6. And you may not want to bulk generate within a UI. You might want to do this with API. And so as a note, the way that we built this is we have a UI that looks okay, but it's really powered by all these APIs that are on top of the Google Cloud APIs. So you're able to call them individually. So if you wanted to, modularly use some of the solution examples, you could as well. I'm going to add that to my campaign. A website post, you do the same thing. I have some preset examples here. And what it'll do is it'll generate a website post length set of text with the company profile here as well. I can also, I'll take this. We can also select that and add that to our thing if we wanted to. I'll submit that. But you can also go in and edit one of these. So you could, it's always fun to try to do a lot of demo, obviously. So I'm going to try this. Let's change this. Let's try it. Let's see if we can change these shoes to blue canvas for me. Go imaging. go imagine. So imagine, there's a lot of really interesting features that are in Imagine. You can do, so a lot of companies will come to us and say, hey, I don't want just randomly generated shoes. We're a shoe company. We want to have our own shoe products. Oh, so close. Okay, not at all. But like, they tried to put in at least some kind of holes that look like.
Like blue.
Some blue. All right, let's not look at that one. That one's dramatic. Ooh. All right, demo gods. Not working with it. We'll take them. All right.
Maybe it's vegan leather.
I like it. Vegan leather. So one of the interesting things about Imagine is you have not only the base model that you can use, but you also have 2 other really interesting things you can do with it. Was that you have a bunch of examples of your particular product or your logo that has to be in a certain font and everything else. You can do something that's called subject tuning. So you can give it a bunch of images, say 100 of those images, and it will create a subject tune endpoint for you. So you can say, put in my logo here, and whenever you say my logo, that logo will show up as is and won't be hallucinated and weirdly generated. And that's subject. So you could have your shoes that may be like a white canvas shoe that you have stock photo of, and you're like, put this in a sunset, do this, turn it this way, put it on a table, and it will remain the same. There's another version that's called style transfer. So you can say, I have 10 really great shots of this previous product that was in this great sunset, or just like a really great mountain scene. I want you to put mountain scene I want to show the shoe in a mountain scene, and that phrase mountain scene can be associated with a particular style. So you can do style transfer as well. And so you can have a whole series of things. That's one of the things folks tend to ask me. Can you show me that in this example? I'm like, when I get to it, we have a team that will build that. So like we have some interesting versions. So there's 2 other things in here that I want to show you before I run off to activation. One is social media. So if we pick men and we do, like I mentioned again, olds. And then you can say, and shoes, what this does is goes through, and since this is an Instagram example, it gives an Instagram headline, body post, call to action, an image as well. And so you can say, whether you're in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, then you can see that because I have done, this older age segment, like I said, like myself, you can have that you can have some specific prompting examples generated for you or in the generation. And we'll add that to our campaign. If you're doing Google Ads, which I know you should be doing, you can generate PMax asset groups. So Performance Max is the way to do ads headlines and add sort of copy. This will generate copy for you, which is great. And you can also do the same thing. You pick an image, add it to our piece here. So this really accelerates the content generator, the creative's ability to run a lot more A/B tests, manage multiple campaigns at once without having to necessarily do a whole bunch, at least storyboard a lot of things, right? And when you save all these campaigns, when I'm adding this to my campaign, it's adding it to a Google Drive folder. So I have all these assets for use and reference in later campaigns too. Imani Campaign Manager is going to want to do two things. One, they're going to review the campaign assets that we created, so I can recall my campaign and look at all this stuff. You can see the campaign brief that's here. I can send the brief someplace if I want to email it. I can look at my PMAX asset campaigns, look at emails that I've generated, Instagram ad, as well as the website post. And then I can hit upload to Google Drive, which should be doing in the background. But in addition to uploading to the Google Drive, and the reason, again, why you want to put things in a place where you're doing this that you can collaborate on is because marketing teams are very collaborative. They're like, no, I want that word changed, right? And so a lot of folks also come and ask me, can we just, at the top of the app, can I just hit go and generate all the emails and send them and everything? You probably could. I mean, there's definitely, the APIs to go to full automation. Though I think that we're definitely in a period where, number one, you want to make sure you have collaborative brand tone control. So you probably have some style guidelines that your teams want to use. So in addition to checking that and hearing that, it's probably useful to generate the assets and then review them. One of the things that let me try to see what it is or not yet. So while I'm generating this, what it's generating is not only putting that into a Google Drive, but it's also generating a slide deck. Right? So that slide deck will contain a variety of the marketing analyst information that we will want to review with our team. I'll give that a second here. And then you have a slide deck that's available, as well as the creative brief that we looked at earlier. And it has analyst insights. It's pulled out some of these and it's put it into a slide deck that your team will want to use. Making slide decks is fun for everybody, right? So at least you get a start. The next thing is, if you've activated all this campaign and it's running now, what you want to do is go back to your dashboard, see the data coming in, and maybe you want to ask it a question. Right? So we asked a question of existing CDP data, but maybe you want to ask the question of either your looker data or even something like, the conversion trend is not exactly how I'd like it to be. How do I optimize my ad spend? And this particular corpus of data is trained off of MailChimp, Google Ads, that sort of thing, and so you can get some inline information about what you want to do. So asking the questions of the campaign that's running is very useful. So that is like a full cycle behavior with regards to how the marketing journey occurs with generative AI throughout that. Generating pieces, text to SQL sort of examples, as well as creating ad copy or copy in different ways, as well as images. Are there any questions or thoughts? Yes?
So, one question is, how, again, you address skills? I'm a marketer, and another question that I have is, in the B2B space, so you're talking about marketing campaigns here, and creating, does this create different types of assets, for instance, like an ebook or like white papers or sales sheet?
That's a great question. This particular example is like designed for this particular use case, but you can kind of see how you would do that. And the prompts for website posts are also kind of interesting to view. I think one thing people had asked me as well is, we want to produce short ads in audio, or we want to produce a podcast or even an ad. Can you do that? And the answer is yes. Like we have a text-to-speech API. We have a variety of different things that you could plug in at that time. And the solution design is supposed to be extensible. So this is sort of a retail B2C campaign, but if you wanted to make it into a B2B campaign, have those different asset lengths, et cetera, you can just plug in the prompts that are necessary to do that. And I should probably show that part, I guess, where you can do that. So this is on GitHub. It's Google Cloud Platform / GenAI for marketing. And it has the architecture that we're using here, which is, we use a variety of different things that are involved. And once you download this. You do have, there's a technical journey. You have to get a Google project, you have to go on GitHub, you have to install a few things. So it's not just like a one-click sort of thing. But once you get to a particular part of it, you can go and change either the back-end APIs or the front-end APIs to be a front-end to say, generate a white paper length information about this particular product. Or the other one I've seen a lot of people do is we have this product catalog for our B2B products, and it's a little bit spotty. Like there might not be description for every one of our SKUs. There might be a short description, a long description, everything else. Can you just go through that and fill out the ones that are missing? And that's another really interesting use case for Gen AI. So you can say, this one's missing, make a short description. Let's make a long description of this. And then if you have like an idea of which products you're trying to put into a white paper, you can say, using these products, generate a blog post or a white paper. Yeah. Hey.
Yeah, I was also intrigued by the content generator myself. And I noticed that you could do the emails. You were walking through that example. Can you do different emails for different audience lists, like someone who's visited in the last 30 versus the last 6 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the goal of having a little bit of the audience segmentation to show you if you had done a little bit of, like if your data team has done segmentation already, you can use that and produce emails per segmentation. But if you do that text-to-SQL analysis, one of the things people have asked is do micro-segmentation or refine the segments and then use that segment for my personalization.
So when the data comes in from BigQuery, right? Is that going to be like from the analytics or something?
Yeah, that's from the analytics. And you can, so one of the things that's interesting about that is, and we actually have a clustering example that I need to put in here as well to show you how you can generate clusters with the data, right? So if you want to say, here's my segmentations. I want to have 5 segments and I want them to be of this size, so people that buy above this but also below this, and then segment in different ways with the other CDP data. And it'll say, well, people that have bought this way also have these other characteristics, and we've segmented it for you. And then you can kind of do that with text-to-SQL to say, write me, give me segmentation for people that have bought over this amount of money, and it'll kind of show you a table of whatever it is. But you want to have all those other attributes, because if you have those other attributes that define that segment, you can then do segment-based personalization. Write the email with this information, right? Not only have they purchased above this, but they also purchased a bundle or whatever if you have that particular type of data. So then you can have copy that at least says for this segment, and maybe the other thing that we haven't added in here, which is definitely possible, is if you say this week we're running a special for bundles, and what we want to do is for people that have a high propensity to purchase, we give a 20% discount. For people that have a low propensity to purchase, let's give them a 5% discount. And if you have that in your table, you can say, write me an email, and then for this segment, you can get 5 different emails for this group. And then you, as the content team, can decide which one you actually like, or you can A/B test those.
So are you training the model on like the actual copywriting?
That's
For
also
the
a
actual
great question
tone?
as well. Yeah,
Oh.
so a lot of brands have their own voice that they want to
Right.
write things
Exactly.
in, right? So what we have in this example, and I'm showing a terrible, I'm leaving a terrible thing up. Let me put this up because I think this is better to look at. What we have is we use the base Vertex AI Palm text bison model. That is just the foundation model. You can prompt it to say, write it in a peppy manner. Our brand tone is, the symbol of brands, and you can get a fairly good prompt. But in copy, you have a lot of copy, a lot of existing copy for your particular brand and voice, the brand voice that you want to use. You can tune the model on copy and get a specific one. We see this asked from a lot of agencies. I'm an agency, I work with 5 different companies. I want to work with, a shoe company, I want to work with a makeup company, I want to work with an electronics company. They have different brand voices. So if you have all their copy, you can create a tuned model for each of them. So when you say write an email, it comes out in more or less the style of that, or at least towards the style of that, which is, gets you part of the way there. And I think that's really a productivity improvement. And then you can just refine it. Yeah. You in the back, because you asked for something.
I mean, at the end of this campaign, generally you fine tune any campaign depending on how well or received that campaign is. So generally in the Vertex AI, how do you see as of now? Because at the beginning of cycle, whatever data you're putting in, data engineering team would here when the campaign goes out, how would that work out? How would the Vortex AI be able to collect the data out of different touch points? Like is it pops up, staging pipeline, then how quickly that turnaround time currently stands? And if you want to use it in the current scenario, the real life scenario, how does that work out?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I like to think of the Gen AI for marketing solution as sort of bookended by two different pieces. One is a data ingestion portion, and then once you've then the campaign activation, actual campaign activation, and that kind of feeds back into the ingestion. So there's another open source GitHub project that we call, it's called Marketing Analytics Jumpstart, and it has in it, this is the portion that's one of the bookends, right? So if you have GA4 or Google Ads, this has a lot of data flow and other templates that will grab the data from there, process it, and put it into BigQuery tables in real time. Right? So you can get that in there. If you've already had, there's another one called IPQML to bring that in as well. So once you've got that flow going in, once you've activated the campaign, the GA4 will come back into that, right? And so now you have it in BigQuery. And in BigQuery, you can do other things like the MLOps pipeline that's mentioned there to do auto segmentation, right? And one of the things is when you're seeing GA4 come in, you'll have different segments, and maybe you want to even push those segments that you've done back into your campaign and change that, right? So it's not the Gen AI particular use case, but it's like the things that bookend.
So I work for a fairly large marketing firm, and an issue that's been brought to us a number of times from different leaders within the firm is about taking the data that we get from clients and telling a story about that data.
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think that some of the text to SQL pieces can at least highlight pieces of those data that you think are interesting to, you can do. We have another part of BQML that does anomaly detection, which if you want to use that, you can say, here, show me interesting places within the data. So you can do different ways to like describe the data. And usually what happens is, and I'm sorry I don't have my segmentation example up, but like what usually happens is, here's a table. That's not interesting, right? If the table is not interesting, it doesn't tell a story. But if you can say, explain this in different ways that make sense with this background, you'll actually get readable text out of it, right? And so you're getting closer to being able to really communicate what the data is saying to non-data people. And I think that's the sort of peanut butter and jelly of having BQ and BQML that does great analysis and generative AI that can explain some of that stuff. So that I've seen people want to do that.
So my question is that there's a lot of Gen AI tools out there, and I know that marketers people have been using it for their marketing purpose. So how would you say that this product stand out from the other Gen AI tools, except for the fact that it's very marketing focused?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. It's a really good question. I think one of the things that we do here at Google Cloud is if you've seen our products, the Google Cloud Platform tends to be services for people to use. And we have a lot of partners that use those to do things. Like Jasper AI, for example, is a great partner that does content writing, right? What we did here is to show this broader end-to-end, and we have a bunch of partners that are like, can we plug Jasper into that? You absolutely can. Like, it's part of a workflow, right? So you don't necessarily need to use all of this. We're not intending to, so I run solutions go to GitHub, and solutions aren't products, right? So people tend to ask, can I just deploy this and use this? Sure, you can, but it's not a Google Cloud product per se. Well, with our partners that do things like this, like Jasper or Typeface, or even Full Story that do like click tracking around a website, their data is very useful for doing CDP analysis or any of these parts that are in here to make more hyper-personalization, for example. So I would say that we work pretty well together. I've talked to all those folks that I mentioned, for example, and they're like, we'd love to be able to show where we fit into this story, because Jasper does content generation. They don't do analysis, and they don't do campaign activation, right? So like, there's really good reasons to find what this looks like for a combined using GCP and partner story. So yeah, because this particular solution accelerator is not product per se. It's not like it's a competitive nature. Yeah. Awesome. If there's not any other questions, happy to move on to our next presenter.
I have one last
Yeah.
thing. So when you showed us that you start from analytics, you get the data, you process. Is the process of doing, what about the next campaign? Do you start again from the analytics generated from this particular campaign? Or the system is able also to retrain itself based on whatever you did in this campaign and what the data came out of?
That's a very good question as well. And I would actually ask our marketers in the room how they actually run campaigns, because it may not be a follow-up. Maybe they're doing 3 or 4 parallel campaigns and they want to A/B test those or whatever. So like how that data then comes back and is used is sort of a choose your own adventure. You like to do that in process.
So, but it is possible to do a follow-up campaign based on whatever, and not risk, like, you use a Vertex AI too much on content that is generated by Vertex AI, and eventually you get into a degraded state of, in which the language is no longer.
That's interesting.
Poignant.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because what the sort of what goes hand in hand with being able to create a great campaign is being able to track. That's what makes a great campaign. You're able to track what actually worked and what didn't work. And if you start doing a lot of different things, you have a lot more metrics to track. And so there's this trade-off that you have to do. Can you track all the metrics for all the A/B tests that you might want to do with these 5 or 6 different emails that you're doing? And of those, what's actually really nice about that is you can say, I only want the, let's say 20% of those email headlines really got open, right? Let me take those 20% headline and retrain the model and say, next time I ask for an email headline, give me one that looks like one that's open, right? And so you can use that data in different ways, but it depends on how your team wants
It
to.
is, yeah, because the data eventually will snowball using AI to weed through the brush and, get all the stuff that actually sparkles.
Yeah, right, actually worked for your particular KPIs, right? And so it is how you want to use the data. Like what's next is sort of up to the marketing people.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. You good, Joe?
Yeah, well, I want to give like a 5-minute break before the panel.
Perfect. Yes, let's do that.
So, folks, let's take a 5-minute break. We're going to kick off a panel. We're going to get all situated here. So that means you go stretch your legs, go to the bathroom, get a drink, go get situated. 7 o'clock, let's kick off the next panel. And, yeah, see you then. Thank you. I got to fix this audio before I pull someone's ears out.
Hey, how are you?
this down. If you, yeah, maybe Dan will probably get a cup in just so we get the slide. Test.
Yeah, my best.
Alright, I'm just testing this audio. Do this. Sorry, this is gonna be a little personal here.
Is it just the three of us? Or you
It's just the three of us. I'll be on the panel though. I'll be on the moderator.
Yes. So Kevin and Donna. Those are the two folks that once our solution started to graduate from innovation, so we put it 0 to 5. It goes over to Randy.
Yeah, only
So Randy Holloway takes that to his team does stuff with that.
I sit next to
I mean, that's what,
Hey, I don't get this.
It's interesting.
I just sit here, I just do the data.
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
super north side, like 3 more. No, not
You guys
that
are
far.
doing it right.
Yeah, I think it's Holloway's team. Just AI.
If it's
It's passing. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. I agree.
Is there like some front
Get settled in for to wrap up the event today. So,
That'll be interesting change.
okay, cool. So, thank you everyone, an awesome presentation again. I will say thank you so much for that. So, I promised this would have some Cloud Max extended stuff. So, we, just like the Google I/O panel, we're going to do a panel on Cloud Max extended. Just a show of hands, how many folks kind of work in the Google Cloud ecosystem right now, like use that on a day-to-day? Does anyone here use Google Cloud? Okay, some stuff. Yeah, come on. Yeah, that's how many folks have experimented with it or look at it, maybe have seen it before? Fantastic. That's even more show of hands. We're actually we have a pretty diverse panel in terms of like an audience here, covering things from, customer engineering, innovation, as well as marketing and analytics and data. So let's just get started. Could you just go down the line, maybe introduce yourselves? I know Hussein, you just did it, but maybe just introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your role and where you're at, Google, but all of you, but just maybe give us a kind of audience introduction.
Hi again, Hussein Chenoy. I work as a technical solutions manager on the global Gen AI team. And I've been here at Google for 4 years. For most of my time, actually, I was a customer engineer as well. in the Colorado area. That's where my home office is in Boulder. And I worked on companies that were interested in doing conversation, speech, and language. So like a lot of my background, I don't think I know too much of, is in application modernization and speech and language. So when Gen AI hit, it was really nice to see, because we see that no one really cared about speech and language before, and then they did, and then they wanted to use it, and they needed to connect it to stuff. So like having application design and being able to connect things together, and my past experience as a GDG member was really great. So you can build things with language models that are kind of really interesting, and that's sort of my background.
Subbu Ramkumar, I'm a customer engineer based out of Chicago. I've been with Google for about 4 years. My background is in data and analytics, and in healthcare, so that's who I support here at Google. So I support large healthcare enterprises on their journey to cloud. Even prior to Google, I have 10 years of experience in the healthcare space. As Hussein mentioned, over the last few months, the time to value journey has significantly been reduced thanks to Gen AI. And this is what I've been having most of my conversations about over the last few months, where how can we unlock more and more use cases using Gen AI?
Great, I'm Rachel Levy. This is like the most senior Google panel ever with a 4 for it. I've been at Google for 6 years, so I feel like no one's been at Google that long, so well done, team. I work on our global solutions team, working with customers to bring use cases to life. So my role is to run workshops where we actually identify use cases and then build them in real time and in a POC kind of methodology from anything from a lot of Gen AI right now, but also background in data, traditional machine learning, which is what like ML has officially become, as well as data governance.
Cool. That actually segues perfectly into the question I had. When working with potential customers, or what is a trend that you see a lot of excitement around currently in the field today? What are some, obviously without going into specifics, if you had to say this is something you should definitely check out on either Google Cloud or a technology that can be implemented in Google Cloud, do you have at your something that you would recommend?
Okay, yes. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Gen AI, and that's exciting. And I will say we are seeing a lot of demand for that, and I'll let you get into more details. But a lot of demand in the internal Gen AI use cases is where I'm seeing a lot of organizations start. So we've done a lot of things around essentially building internal search engines or chat apps around it and helping people understand their benefits and those types of use cases where people want a lower risk way to try technology by keeping it internal, so that there's not a hallucination or a snafu around externalizing it. Sidebar though, you should always look at Looker Studio, because that's my favorite Google product, and it is a free one. So look at Looker Studio.
I think for me, one of the things that was announced at Next was Colab Enterprise. I think this is I don't know how many of you in the room have used Colab before, but there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, quite a few people, right? And I mean, it's an awesome way to, in a notebook type interface, connect to all your data sources, create a logical flow. But the one thing that was holding it back was dependency on Drive. I think with this, we've solved for that, and hopefully it's ready. I mean, not hopefully, it's definitely more integrated with everything in GCP. So that way you get a good understanding of BigQuery, you get a good understanding of managed databases. So the developer workflow has become a lot more easier. And as it goes into GA, hopefully a lot more enterprises and developers start using this.
Wait, can I ask a question about that? Sorry, I know I'm not the moderator.
No, please.
How are we reconciling enterprise notebooks or the Vertex notebooks and
So both of them are going to show up in Vertex. So
okay.
Either you create it, if you create it in Vertex, it's obviously going to be there, but Colab Enterprise is also going to show up.
Cool.
And I have a question too. So,
Hey, who has the questions here?
This is good. So one of the things that I liked was that we announced BigQuery Studio, which has Colab in it. How does that relate to?
So the same thing. So
Okay.
I think a notebook that gets created within BQ shows up in Colab Enterprise.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah,
So-
so you-
I love this.
yeah, so it's nice and seamless.
Yeah, I think you, multiple places of entry, but everything is housed within Colab Enterprise.
We had a great use case with our marketing team looking to use Colab, but we obviously in the healthcare space have a lot of requirements of data residency, right? Just being able to see the lack of need for drive. So also, if you're not in workspace, you'll always get prompted with you don't have access to this. So that being said,
Why not using Workspace? Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, you know, but I mean, it opens the door for barriers of using Google Cloud and all the features of it. But the best part of it is that while it is awesome, it's also free while it's in the preview. So if you want to see all the power you can do, try it now before they charge money for it. So it's totally free. Like I mean, you can literally create like 5 or 6 VMs. I have people firing it off left and right at the company. It's getting a lot of traction internally.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So apart from BQ Studio and Colab, which is awesome, I think what's probably obvious is the Palm APIs, but not obvious is where it is. You can go into BigQuery and call text generate directly in BigQuery, and you can use the Palm API in it. So I've often referenced my segmentation example, but if you create a segment in K-means cluster in BigQuery, you can say explain it, and it will create more columns that explain it. And just like I don't have to go anywhere except BigQuery to do, Palm and do a generative AI. Yeah, and so like having Palm all throughout the different products that we use is really interesting. I did speech and language before, so I did a lot of things with Dialogflow CX, which is our conversation platform. In the conversation platform, which tended to be natural language, NLP has 2 branches: the natural language understanding, what is the intent, and now that we have Palm, we have natural language generation, and so you can do both of those in Dialogflow CX. So having native integration to the Palm API throughout our products has been really, really exciting for me to see.
I know I'm not on the panel, but kind of following and do it. I'm more on the operational side, operational infrastructure, maintaining the infrastructure, kind of, which is driven by a lot of these awesome APIs. One of the biggest moments for me seeing generative AI is, looking at logs, let's say, of a VPC of a network. It's very daunting and there's a lot of information, especially if you're new to understanding network flow logs. Just being able to hit explain this log line to me, and it said, hey, this traffic is not working because there's a firewall that's blocking you. The firewall is called blah. You can change it by doing this. It was awesome. Like, how many times have we tried to deploy something and it's like, why is this not working? What's blocking me? And half the time you're like trying different tests and you're on a call with a network engineer, try now. Gone. It's awesome to see. And I think that's gonna be the really cool future of that. So I'll kind of going on that note. So Gen AI was like a big topic this year at Next. I think we were trying to count how many times it was mentioned in the keynotes. Obviously with all your different backgrounds and the different aspects of Google, where do you see folks implementing Gen AI in their day-to-day workflows? Spoiler, you kind of talked about it, but how in general, how does it? How do you see Gen AI being used in the world today?
Everywhere. Yeah, like I think there's a lot of utility for it. When I write code, I make it write my code. Right. Yeah, I know exactly. Test cases are great. You just do that. But then, like the Gen AI for marketing example, we see it really going throughout all sort of user personas. So it's not just technical folks that are, explain this log line to me, but continually generate things that are kind of interesting for me that are insights. Actually, another somewhat technical one for me that's my favorite is CI/CD pipelines, right? So the test case one is you submit something, but there's no test case. Write a test case, resubmit it, and then see if that works. Like that sort of inner loop to outer loop flow is just like so much more smooth and also weird, but like smooth. And so I think having that to do performance optimization in different areas.
So as an example, again, I work in the healthcare space, so I'll pick a healthcare use case that most of us in the room would be familiar with. So every time you have an encounter with a doctor, the doctor is always typing up notes, and it's not really a personal relationship that you're building in that 30 seconds or 45 seconds or whatever you get with that doctor, right? So this is a use case that Gen AI is currently we're solving with many customers, where we're taking into account like ambient listening and ambient note taking, where the doctor doesn't really have to be the one like typing up everything that's happening within the encounter, where a device could capture that interaction and even extract the key relevant medical entities that help in creating the claim, the encounter, and even the after-visit summary, and in a form that a doctor can understand, a nurse can understand, and even you as a patient can understand, right? Because not everybody has the same level of education and understand medical concepts at the same level. So that entire workflow could be simplified for all actors involved. And all of this is created by like 2 foundational models. One is Palm, and the second one MedPalm, which we launched, where a lot of this workflow could be reduced into a few simple operations, and this can have a significant impact.
Great. So obviously I agree with everybody that we're seeing a lot of demand for this in a ton of different spaces, and I agree that like from even not from a customer perspective, but what I'm telling everybody, especially I have a lot of friends that aren't in the tech space, I'm saying to start using Bard or whatever, like some sort of generative AI literally every single day to do one thing for you, personal work, because I think this is becoming reality in some capacity and it is going to influence everybody. So just sidebar, I think that however people use it, they should be doing it at least once a day to get more familiar with it. But speaking around like specific use cases, what I've really been seeing with customers is they want to do everything. Like they want to do the whole marketing thing, and it is really quick compared to perhaps what it was a year ago. But we're focusing on things like with a mortgage organization, they want to. Obviously, mortgage market is kind of crazy. There's a lot of guidelines coming out of the FHA and all these and HUD all the time, and they have to turn that into code so that it can be used in their underwriting software, so that they can then process loans more quickly. So the way we thought about using Gen AI, like in that use case, was first, turn the HUD or FHA guidelines into English, because yes, it is technically English, but it's like legal governmental jargon that makes no sense, especially to developers. Then once we have that, identify the variables, so like a DTI or any sort of calculation, and then generate the code. So rather than saying, hey, take this guideline, generate the code that can integrate into my application, we thought about it in a way that said, what is the first thing we can do, which is turn it into more of a plain English, then turn it into variables, then turn it into code. And that's one way we're just seeing people work with it in that much more iterative fashion, and then you can get to the thing much more quickly because it is broken down in a more achievable way, my opinion at least.
So one of the thoughts, when it's getting started with the cloud and getting, looking at, it's daunting, right? Almost every cloud provider has tons of services. What are some recommendations you have for someone maybe in that first step journey of like, hey, I want to do some innovation on GCP or on, whatever. What are some things that you would recommend to folks in the audience, like, hey, use this as a getting started point to kind of launch your investigative perspective? Again, different backgrounds here, so I'm sure you get a lot of different answers, but is there anything anyone on the panel would recommend and start? Yes?
Yes. I will say when I started in Google Cloud, I had literally zero experience with Google Cloud. And I was like, okay, manager, literally, what do I do? What is my job here? And what helped was actually having very specific use cases or goals. So rather than saying, I'm going to go learn BigQuery, I'm going to go learn Gen AI, or I'm going to go learn like Kubernetes or whatever, I really, really could not emphasize how much you need to know what you're trying to build and then figure out how to build it. So figuring out the what prior to the how. So if you're saying, I really want to understand data better, maybe it's, or like BigQuery, it's like, okay, what kind of analytics do you want to power and what kind of thing do you actually want to build? Start there and work backwards. Because I will also caveat that I don't have a technology background formally. I have an English background, and even less helpful is a poetry writing background. Yeah.
That's my degree as well.
Okay, so yes, we will vibe on this later, I swear.
Yeah,
but,
give me poetry.
Yeah,
it's like YAML files look like stanzas.
Yeah, sort of some sort of E.E. Cummings stuff going on. But I
just say YAML files and poetry.
Or a very bad nightmare.
I'll just say start somewhere with an end in mind and then figure out how. But it is really hard to learn any technology if you don't know what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I'd plus one that I'd say like figure out what you're passionate about, whether it's a domain, whether it's an industry, and then pick a use case or pick multiple use cases within that. And then you can get to the products and solutions and all that beyond that. But then figure out what you're interested in from a use case and an industry perspective, and then there are multiple avenues, right? Like instructor-led training, online training. Like you can reach out to anybody in the community to like figure out what they've done for similar use cases, and then that's a faster way to like figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then you can get to the eventual goal of building a proof of concept or even a large-scale project.
Yeah, those are exactly what we should do. And what I think is really interesting about Google Cloud is we have tiers of things. Like you can, fire up a VM, it's pretty low level. But we also have on the other side of the spectrum things like build a chatbot or Document AI, which is a product that, or a service which allows you to do OCR and AI and extract information about it. So if you're doing loans or mortgages or any types of structured data that you want to get out of a PDF, et cetera, you can build a process that pulls all that information out, and you can do something at a higher level API that you can use or a high level service. And so if you have an idea in mind, it's nice to start with some of the solution products versus the lower level APIs. And so that's really fun what they say.
So, on the note of APIs and services and features, I know we kind of glossed over a few things that we liked. One thing I'll say about Cloud Next this year was it felt like it was a conference within a conference. You were on stage, you saw Thomas Kieran speaking about like generative AI, but then if you watch like Twitter or like the LinkedIn, it was like announcing a brand new way to do firewalls, announcing a brand new way to do this, and I'm just like, whoa, this is like way too much information. So like you're going to talks about Gen AI, and then another talk gets announced. It was, to be honest, it was a little overbearing. It was a lot of content. It was I think
63.
Something crazy. Definitely more than 150. So that being said, of the announcements at Cloud Next, what's one thing that you maybe that you took away from it? Was there a specific announcement that anyone on the panel wants to share from an announcement perspective?
I think they announced generative playbooks and Dialogflow CX. So we have this prompting technique called React. It's reason and act. So if you instead of just saying a large language model generate this particular statement, you say, think about it in this way and what would you need to do and tell me those next steps and then do those next steps. That's a fairly nuanced academic sort of description of what's going on, but then we have a product that does that. And that was really interesting to me to see how rapidly we're taking this whole area of Gen AI from research to production, so you're able to actually use it rather than saying, oh, I need to read archive papers and try to reproduce things and do that sort of stuff. You're actually having a lot more collaboration internally with Google from the research team and Google Cloud to bring products to bear. So that was nerdy, interesting thing that I had.
I think a couple of sessions that I was able to sit in on when I was there were on BigQuery Omni and LRDB Omni. And I think it's good to see from a strategy perspective, like we're doubling down, that we realize the reality in most enterprises is that they have investments in other clouds as well. And it's not really feasible to like move data across clouds for every use case that you want to send up on Google Cloud. So I think it was good to see us building on that, where we talked about like how you can just not do like one-off queries on Google, but you can actually build up like a data pipeline that spans across multiple clouds, whether it's transactional on LIDB or whether it's warehouse type setups on BigQuery. So I think that was very interesting.
Omni is huge. I mean, that's being able to run databases where you are at in a data center or in another cloud provider. It gets the fear of being locked into a provider kind of gone, right? You find the right tool, and yeah, I agree. That was definitely huge to see.
I actually, there were a lot of announcements, and honestly, I can't remember which were coming in next and which were pre-next, if I'm being honest.
Anything you can leak? Ooh.
No. But what I will say is that the stuff I find most interesting is how I've been seeing it applied. So I really liked watching the customer stories and the customers speak about it. Like, I thought the Wendy's use cases were really cool because I worked on that, and I'm not just promoting it. I also lost my appendix in that battle, just an FYI. So, like to see it actually happen. Sometimes it's like, I love technology, but not for technology's sake, and to see how actual organizations are adopting it, especially when we sit here and say, oh, I think this is how customers will or could or should use it, and then to see how they actually do has been extremely inspiring for me. So seeing that and Six Flags and a lot of the other great use cases was really enjoyable.
I want to chime in on that because I think one of the takeaway talks I think was, well, there's two that I had, was Capcom talking about how they built their multi-region infrastructure and using like Istio and GKE. It was awesome. The speaker just got up and basically dropped facts, and it was like, holy crud, this is so much data. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm like trying to take notes, and he's like, don't worry, the slides are gonna be available. And then to channel that too, even from a monitoring perspective, Snap Inc., Snapchat, they had probably one of the more accessible talks on debugging issues. It was awesome. Literally being able to take so you hear generative AI, hear alerts, you hear this. What happens when you get that call at 2 in the morning that something broke, right? So they walk through like example scenarios on how to triage and debug issues. Awesome user story end to end, and I think that was awesome. I think if you have a chance to watch any of the lectures, definitely check that one out. Again, seeing how people are using Google Cloud and the technologies, and it may not always be like, oh, well, we never thought of that. So it's kind of like Lego bricks, right? Like you folks at Google are very fortunate to be able to release these Lego bricks to us, the builders, and we kind of stack on top of them. So it's extremely fun, and I'm sure it's also very daunting to say, we never thought that would be used that way, but we can try it. Cool. So that being said, we want to turn it over to anyone in the audience. Does anyone in the audience have any questions for our panelists? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, in the Google Next, there was a talk about Duet AI. So is there any more information you have? How would is it over and top of Vertex AI, or is it something different that, from a learner's perspective, that we have to learn? How would that work out?
So the question was, so I'm just saying it for the live stream because they can hear it too. The question around was, Duet AI, and in comparison with things like Vertex AI, how is it used? Any more news around Duet AI and its implications and
How do you learn that?
How can you learn it?
Yeah, I always forget which is where the private preview status of
Yes,
things
that's
are.
I'm in the same spot.
But there's a way.
It's GA.
It's all
It is.
do it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if it was private preview, you could sign up for it and get access to it. But if it's GA, is it GA with allow list? Do you know? Like there's a
I'm
little.
not sure.
Yeah, there's a
I
little
submitted a
nuance.
number of
I know we got
projects
1,500
2 weeks ago.
I think it's still on a project basis. When
Yeah, you have to submit your projects that you want to add. At least I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though it's GA, you still have to ask for access to it. So I don't know where that is. I forget where they have the access list for that, but we can find that out and send that around. There's a lot of different places that Duet AI exists in Google Cloud. So there's Duet AI in BigQuery for doing assistive querying. There's Duet AI in Cloud Code. So if you use VS Code and you're doing code, there's assistance there. So Duet AI is kind of sprinkled throughout. So how you learn it and the relation to it. How you learn it is kind of where you want to start. If you're a BigQuery person, I would do that. And it's in Colab too, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
So in Colab,
Because
there's
now Colab is in with the BigQuery.
yeah, so there's assistive and everything. It's kind of in everything. Vertex AI is the platform that hosts all of our foundation models. What the cloud team did for their assistive tooling is they trained a model on Google Cloud, information, so that Duet AI is that trained model for being able to use it. So that's the relationship.
And it's in Workspace.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah, it is
Duet
in
AI for
Workspace too. Yeah.
Can't forget Workspace. Rachel.
Can't forget Workspace. Any other questions in the crowd? Cool.
It's not a question, it's just a feedback. So, when I was researching about different clouds, I really like the, UX of Google Cloud. It's very student friendly, and first of all, it's free. And there's a small feature called badges there, where you learn a small thing and gives you badge. So it really helps in getting consistency while learning the cloud. So thank you for that.
So you actually mentioned an interesting piece. You said like there's a free tier. How has your experience been with the free tier? Do you find it restricting or?
Right now I'm just researching about, just started my journey. So I was researching about different clouds, main 3 big clouds. So I love the Google, like it's very student friendly and yeah.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's awesome.
+1 for the.
+1. Yeah, that's good.
It's more like a generalized question. Now that Gen AI is actually the hot topic, and with many tools coming up like ChatGPT and Bard and stuff like. First of all, I want to understand. Like, I'll tell you my personal experience. As she mentioned that I think at least one, especially we are students, we have tons and tons of assignments. Our go-to has become ChatGPT, and like. Comparatively, I think before ChatGPT for today, I feel like the amount of Google search I do every day has significantly reduced. What is Google doing to kind of meet that problem? Or is it actually a problem for Google, or how are they planning to kind of address it? It's like more like a generalized question, but then yeah, like a really kind of curious to know what Google is doing to kind of, address that issue.
How widely available is search general experience, do you know?
I think it's still rolling out in
Why?
private.
I got it offered to me the other day. Like when I'm searching now, I'm seeing like the integration
yeah.
of Bard and
Yeah,
I think you can go into labs and enable generative search.
So in Google search, there's a way to do a multi-turn follow-up conversation, but I think it's in preview right now. So you can have a conversation within search, so you could start there if you wanted to. Bard as well has like tools as well in there, so you can optionally say, look at my workspace file. So what I've done, I guess this is a kind of a weird answer to your question. I upload PDFs to Drive, and I say, using my Drive, summarize this paper, or use topics from there. Tell me topics that are about this, and it'll like cite those papers. So you can actually have it do summarizations on that. So it's not exactly search, but it's like search within.
Right.
So I think I don't know the economics of how the difference is, because I think search has some implications to how you're where you're tracking and how you go to get citations. But I think that being able to search and getting the information you want is sort of Google's goal, right? Is to be able to make the world's information accessible and useful for folks, right? So I think there's definitely an economics question that's probably great to handle, but like there's the utility of it, I think, is really sort of what the goal that they're going after with at least the search team as well as the Bard team. I like it. I also like it.
Yeah, I mean, like ChatGPT is kind of like restrictive that way, because like Bard kind of takes in like the links which we kind of share and try to use that, and I could like ask answers based on that information, right? So yeah, I get that. Yeah.
I will also, like pretty transparently, I will say Google is like a very academic company in that we have a lot of things that are built and we use internally, but we haven't fully externalized. And I think, honestly, what ChatGPT did for us in a way that perhaps we were not prepared for, as like the market could see, is that it's forcing us to think more holistically about our product strategy, because we have honestly so much good research at Google that is now being turned into products. And I can say a lot of very honest things about Google, one of which is that I love it, and one of it is that like our product strategy needed to wake up. And I think that I have genuinely, in 6 years at Google, never seen us be better at taking ideas and research and turning it into products than I have in the last 6 to 10 months with the generative AI. Like, we just didn't have a choice, and I think in many ways, like, that was a really good wake-up call for us.
I'll share something from a healthcare and life sciences perspective, not at Google, but I use Google Cloud. We saw generative AI, we saw all the awesome things being built, but then we kind of felt like, how do we do this safely, right? I mean, we're not playing with, data. We're not trying to get our term papers written by an engine, right? This is someone's life, potentially, right? And the last thing we want to do is misclassify it and maybe not have a proper sample size. So for us, like, one of the things that's really important is like, how do we make sure that our data is really our data? How do we make sure that what we're sampling at is really ultimately in a secure sandbox. So things like within Vertex AI, again, not within Google Search, but within Vertex AI, seeing Google's approach of like responsible AI, if you will, is huge because it kind of gives us confidence as we're looking to build the next solution for our customers or for our patients. It gives us the way that we're doing it in the right way. So at least for us, we find it very, very nice.
Can I have a follow-up on that, I guess, just what you said there? I work for a firm that works with a lot of health and life sciences. Yeah. And I guess for you, one thing that we've experienced when trying to talk companies into using AI of some sort is just a general mistrust of it still, especially with really sensitive issues and data like in healthcare. So just from your perspective, what is your overall sentiment on like how close we are to really being able to like have high accuracy and low kind of like fails with any kind of AI, and then how do you communicate those sentiments to customers or products?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? And it comes up in most conversations we have with healthcare customers. I think it's again establishing, like Joel said, like the foundations that are core to every product and every solution that we come to market with, right? So there's a thorough evaluation process that every product and solution needs to go through, where they have to meet like biases criteria across data biases, like racial biases, like every multiple dimensions that need to be validated against, whether it's creating a product, whether it's creating a model, and only then do we actually launch it out there for customers to use it. And once it's out there, we want to understand with the customer, like, okay, what are your insecurities, right? Like whether it's from a data usage perspective, where it's hosted. Then we have a conversation on architecture about residency, about access patterns, about integration with other applications that they're currently using. And then we can address like the holistic picture about how any product or any solution on GCP could fit into that larger puzzle, right? So again, starting from the ground up from a product perspective and then integrating into larger conversations, how I have to quickly approach it.
Can I add one really quick thing to that? Sorry. I will say that I see the value in generative AI of not being perfect. Like if that is the goal, maybe we will get there. Today we are not there, and I actually wouldn't even want people to do that. But my understanding of generative AI is that the intention is not to be perfect, it's to raise the average. So rather than saying if you need something to be precise and accurate 100% of the time, first of all, can a human do that? No. That's like not even a realistic option. Mistakes happen. But what we want to do is say, can we make all of the people working on this or all of the AI that is part of this better than it used to be? And so rather than thinking in terms of, like, then I would say think of use cases where we can apply that rather than saying indiscriminately that we should be doing this for this problem set. Whatever.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
So I'm a little bit curious. I saw someone posted a Instagram and talking about how they use AI to just make edits on the photos, right? But the end result is that the person's face is completely changed, but he's just asking for removing the glasses. So I'm curious, like when you're using AI, how do you validate the performance of it, and how do you make sure you don't make like really stupid mistake when dealing with images or something like that?
Test, and test. Yeah. There's a lot of with any technology, you want to make sure that you understand what your goals are, your KPIs, your metrics, and keep an evaluation set that you want to make sure that you're targeting towards and make sure it's doing that. So for generative AI especially, there's other things than just your standard test process that you're going to do, which is try it out internally, do logs, but you also want to have an internal team that looks at it critically and says, let me try to break it in different ways, because people do different things, right? In the sort of chat and language space, when people are designing like chatbots, they design it typically with their in-house ideas. They don't know what people are going to do, and they release it in the wild, and then people ask random things of it. So you have to think a little bit like an external user and try to do random things to it. and guard against that. You have to build your application to guard against different things. I think the point about responsible AI is interesting too, because in some of the processes that we have, as we're generating images or generating text, it gets a score behind the scenes that you can get when the API calls. So if it exceeds a threshold that you don't want to have, and there's some sort of toxicity scores, this is talking about health, this is talking about violence, this is talking about something else, you can just say, don't exceed that threshold and say, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, for example, in a language model. With an image model, you can do the same thing. We have safety scores that are associated with that too. But that particular example, I don't know how you would necessarily say, here's this person's face and this person's face without glasses, and make sure that it's still the person's face. So that one's an interesting one, but like testing.
Yeah, you can never underestimate the infinite stupidity of humans. So just like acknowledge that and like be like, yeah, people do make mistakes, and I think it's more about being in an environment where mistakes can be made and recovered from, rather than trying to, I mean, you want to do your best to prevent them, but I perhaps am more cynical or a realist that that's not going to fully happen, and you have to be able to also be a human about that and respond accordingly.
I mean, it's not directly an answer for it, but I do know that this is, again, I'm not a generative AI person, but I mean, from a responsible AI, like being able to watermark images, I think we're going to get into a weird future for a little bit until we can figure this out of, hey, how do we know this is really what the photo was, right? Like, just because you were, like, let's say maybe frowning in the photo and everyone else was smiling and AI made you smile, was that an authentic experience? Or was that something that was generated that really, so.
Philosophical.
Yeah. There was an interesting take. There's a great YouTube video that was talking about like the semantics of, you're making a photo that doesn't exist. But at the end of the day, we as humans, in that case, a positive example. You're for friends and you want to be everyone smiling. You can totally do that. But in short, I think that's going to be a really interesting future. I'm curious to see. We're living in it right now. We're on the bleeding edge. So, so with that being said, I want to be mindful of time because pretty soon, in the next 15 minutes, we're going to be rushed out of here. But before we do, I want to make sure that you folks have a chance to fill out the survey because just like we typically do, we're going to be giving away Nest Audio today. So for anyone who is willing to participate in the survey, giving us feedback on today's event, please sign up. In addition, there's also a link to the DevFest that we talked about earlier. But more importantly, feedback, on today's event, what you want to see that event kind of turn into. We're going to try our hardest. We have 2 weeks. So take time to fill this out before we get kicked out of here. But with that being said, I do want to give a big round of applause for our presenters and our panelists today. Thank you, everybody. So, yeah, fill us out. Dan, anything in this?
No, said it all perfect. I was paying attention.
Yep. Yeah, the DevFest is going to be an interesting one. I don't know, Martin, are we going to be able to do it? Dan?
No, see, you need to have faith that we're gonna do it.
I think so.
Otherwise, we fail.
It's happening.
It's going to happen.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be big.
It's going to be big. We have, it wouldn't be possible without the Chicagoland community coming together. I don't know, it feels like almost every meetup we've reached out to has been like, heck yes, we want to be behind it.
Yeah.
And just seeing, I can't say it'll be the most cohesive conference, but I guarantee it'll be one of the wildest and probably most unique conferences you get. Hey, it's free. Come on.
Come and tell your friends. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. October 24th. So we'll probably give folks a few minutes here, maybe do a check here in the 4 minutes, and then we'll do a wheel thing.
Yeah. Wheel of Names.
Wheel of Names by Martin. Yeah.
Did Martin build that?
You did actually build that, yes.
Nice.
What was
Still
the
in
old
use.
URL? The URL was like something like Martin, it was on Martin's GitHub or something?
Yeah.
Probably on his Firebase.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think.
Or App Engine or something.
There's a story, I think he started putting ads on it, and he's actually started making money.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's super
Because if you
funny.
look for like a spinning wheel of names, it's the first thing that always shows up.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Powered by GPG. All right.
So yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. I actually have to run, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being up.
Thank you. I wanted to catch up with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Bye,
See
friends.
you guys.
No.
Okay. I got one of those.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to meet everybody.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you,
good
Sue.
night.
Thank you, St. again. No, that was like
Exciting
exciting.
things to say.
Yeah, there's actually, I guess we didn't, there's one question on there. We're kind of letting you vote on one of the topics. Maybe not necessarily vote, so like, there's a question on the survey where it's like, which one of these topics is the most interesting to you? We're not gonna do it in front of you all, but like, we wanna try and make a conference.
We want to get some community input.
Yeah. Like,
So we will obviously take the vote seriously.
yeah. We wanna make sure that this is for all
I
of
think
y'all.
some of them would require some travel, so. You
Does
know.
anyone still need the form up so I can start looking at the submissions? Is everyone good? Everyone's filling out? All right. Dan, can you help me with your laptop?
It's a Mac, it works the same way as your.
No,
Mac.
but I don't know where your chats are and stuff.
Oh, from your tab.
The forms, you know how to do that. All right. So now for you guys, live stream, thank you so much for tuning in. We've had a record number of attendance. We had 40 people. Yeah, there's actually 40 people on this thing. So, you know, we want to make this event accessible. We recognize that some of you are traveling in. So we recognize that some of you, hey, it's snowing outside, whatever. We would love to see you in person, but we want to make sure that everyone can see it. And on top of it, it's also recorded. So you can watch it later, show your coworkers and stuff like that. So thank you, everyone on the live stream. We're going to kill the live stream now. And we hope to see you at the DevFest. So thank you.